Have you ever had a season where you feel like you are just wrestling with God? You know, those times when you know that something needs to change, and yet your old thinking, your old ways of managing the pain and wrestling with God, feeling like this will be the day that I'll win the match, and yet it never ends that way, does it? Today we're going to be talking about what it looks like and the difference between wrestling with God and clinging to God. It's that idea of fighting change or embracing change. Today we're going to have a conversation around that and maybe learn some things specifically around character defects and those things God may be wanting to change that we don't have to wrestle with any longer.
Recovery can be hard, but it's worth it. There is hope knowing we can find healing one step at a time with Jesus and healthy community. Whether you're struggling with a hurt or a hang-up or a habit, you're not alone. During this podcast, we share real stories, practical tools, and powerful truths that inspire you to keep moving forward. No matter where you are on your journey, there's hope ahead. So stick with us as we walk this path together through Celebrate Recovery.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, struggle with drugs and alcohol and perfectionism. My name is Rodney. I'm one of the pastors here at Celebrate Recovery, and it's good to be here with you today. Got a brother in Christ, Andy. Andy, introduce yourself. Glad to have you here, man.
Yeah. Hey, y'all. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus. I struggle with anxiety and depression, sexual addiction, and grief, and my name is Andy.
Hey, Andy. Hey. So, Andy, we were talking about this and just this idea of wrestling with versus clinging to, and where does that that idea come from? Obviously, we talk about coming from the scriptures, but bring us into that and where that idea comes from.
Yeah. So I think for me, kind of where it kind of percolated in the past few weeks is I was sitting with a guy that has spoken into my life a lot, and wrestling through just some different things, different dynamics going on in my family, different dynamics going on in this season of life. And he was sensing some resistance in me. And, one of the things that he said, and I think it was just kind of just a really wise phrase, and I don't think he meant anything by it, but he said, man, we can either fight it or we can embrace it.
Thanks a lot.
And I'm like, thanks, man. But, as I've thought through that, I really think that's a really wise, kind of godly piece of advice.
Yeah,
is that when things come up in life that God is making us aware of. For me specifically, there's just been a lot of fear.
Yeah,
that has kind of come up.
Yeah,
and
what's that? Just kind of leaning into that. Where's the fear? Just getting vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? What is the fear that you're just putting that into words, man? What's the fear you're wrestling with for what?
Yeah, I think one of them is just fear of the future. I got some things kind of going on within my family right now, some health stuff going on, and I don't really know what that looks like, but kind of being confronted with the reality that I can't control the outcomes.
That's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And then with that, fear the future just in seasons of transition.
Yeah.
When I feel like there's been people around me that feel like they've been like kind of security blankets in some ways.
Yeah.
And like I don't have what I used to. It's a big season change.
Yeah.
And so I remember having somebody define seasons as, you can tell that you're in a different season when things that used to be true no longer are, and things now are true that didn't used to be true. Thinking through just situations and circumstances around us. And so I think in my life, I'm entering into a new season. Yeah. And I think change is one of those things that I wrestle with. And just that advice of like, man, you can either fight against the change, or you can embrace this next season that God's leading you into. And it's been interesting how that's kind of come with circumstances, and you're aware of some of those circumstances going on.
Yeah.
But also just in my own personal recovery, it feels like every time a new season opens up, God also says, hey, by the way, I'm going to open up the next layer of your recovery, brother.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it's funny, I don't always like that.
Yeah. Well, change is hard, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we don't embrace it, is because it can be painful.
Yeah.
Right. The change, when we're working new muscles, we're even thinking about exercising and working out, it's tearing the muscle.
Yeah.
It's like, who wants to sign up for that? But it's tearing the muscle so that it can build it into something better and stronger. And so why would we embrace that? It feels scary. But when you're talking about that, the seasons that are no longer,
Yeah.
right? It reminds me of Allender, talks about that. That's two different layers there. We have the sadness, what was meant to be isn't, right? And just letting that sit in our body. What was meant to be isn't. And then it goes to another layer, which is grief. What isn't meant to be is. And thinking about what you're talking about with your family health stuff. And it's like, this is not what it was meant to be. And yet the reality is it is.
Yeah.
And it isn't meant to be, or is meant to be, and yet it isn't. And so sadness and grief is in that fear, right?
Yeah.
And just good to be aware of that, how that's fueling the fear. What if the unknowns can be scary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've realized as I've walked through my recovery is that, it gets easier sometimes, but it doesn't feel like it's less hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And with that sense of, man, there's some new pain on the horizon. What am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
Before I got into recovery, I would run from the pain.
Yeah.
I would run to my addictions. I would try to find these things that could distract me or numb me, or defend me from not just the pain that I carried with me, but the pain that came to life on the forefront of my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, we were talking about Jacob.
Oh yeah.
Right. In the scriptures, famous for his wrestling with God. Tell me about that and how that relates to this conversation.
Yeah. I think for me, as I've thought about it, it's related really, really strongly. So it's in Genesis 32. If you're not familiar, Jacob was one of the early patriarchs of Israel, and he was actually like a really conniving kind of dude. Probably the most famous story of Jacob is how he stole the birthright from his older brother Esau, and kind of did it in a way where he tricked his elderly father, and deception. That's actually what his name means, is deceiver. And so probably a guy with not the best reputation, but there came a point where he came back around to where he grew up, and he had swindled his older brother Jacob, and he realized that he swindled his older brother Esau, and he realized that Esau was coming to meet him, and realizing what he was going to be confronted with, he retreated in fear on the other side of the river. And he actually sent, if you look in Genesis 32, starting in verse 22, it tells you that night Jacob, he got up, he took his wives and his servants and his sons, and he sent them across the river towards Esau at first. And kind of in a way, some people think it was a way to kind of soften the blow a little bit, like, hey, Jacob's going to come, get ready for it, Esau.
Yeah.
And then he was left alone on the other side of the river. And then we just get this really interesting story that he starts wrestling this dude while he's alone on the other side of the river in the middle of the night. And we find out later that it's actually him wrestling God. But throughout the entire night, Jacob is wrestling with God. And there comes a point where, as day is coming,
Yeah.
God touches Jacob's hip, and so that his hip was wrenched. And then God said, "Let me go, for it's daybreak." And Jacob said, "Look, I will not let you go until you bless me." And so what we see is this: all through the night, Jacob wrestles with God. And there comes a point where God touches Jacob's hip.
Yeah.
He cripples him. And that's an interesting thing there. But God brings pain to the forefront of Jacob's mind there. And Jacob switches from, as he recognizes the pain, from wrestling to clinging with God and saying, "Look, I'm done wrestling, but I'm not letting you go until you bless me."
Yeah.
And for me, as I look at that, and there's a lot of different ways you can look at that story, but for me, as I look at that, it's a reminder for me that when I'm being made aware of these pains that God is bringing to the forefront of my life, I can either sit there and wrestle with it, or I can cling to the God where healing is found, where blessing is found. And that even though that pain is still there, Jacob walked with a limp the rest of his life. But God also changed his name and gave him a new name. The guy that was called deceiver his entire life was now called Israel, which was the name of God's chosen people. And so I think as I look at that in my life, I can either run from the pain that's coming up, or I can recognize who's right there with me in the pain and cling to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good, that pain, and that's one of the reasons why we have fear. We're afraid of this is going to hurt too much. Right?
Yeah.
So that can be one of those things that we'll wrestle with him with. But it's painful through it, but it's a different kind of pain.
Yes.
That difference between chronic pain and acute pain. One is growing me in a different direction. One is keeping me stuck. And so when we avoid pain at all costs, then we stay stuck in that chronic pain.
Yeah.
And God wants to do something different in our life.
Well, and also I think one of the biggest differences that I've learned in my recovery with pain is that before it was me trying to deal with pain on my own.
Yeah.
And trying to isolate myself from how God wanted me to deal with it. Now when pain comes to light, it's me actually allowing myself to invite God into that pain. And there's a difference between experiencing pain alone and experiencing pain with the presence of God with me in it. Yeah. So I think that when we talk about character defects, right, some of those things, obviously early in the process, there's wrestling happening to realize there's a God and I'm not it. Yeah.
And we're wrestling with him, trying to, I should be able to do this under my own power.
Yeah.
And so we go through that first wave of recovery and we realize, okay, I do matter. He has the power. And then sometimes when we get through that inventory and we start identifying some of these character defects, then kind of that same wrestling match that we did before Principle 1 starts happening in Principle 4, and we want to take it back by the reins again, right? God's revealing, hey, you have this level of growth and maturity happening now, and now I want to bring to your attention some of these things that are killing you, that are pushing your closest relationships, that are actually hurting your ability to be effective in your calling and your new purpose in life. And so it can be a little bit wobbly to go, man, I've done all of this, and there is a God and I'm not it, and he has the power. But what about this?
Yeah.
Right? Is that, it's like now it feels like I'm starting over here, God. We've done all this work. Do I really need to surrender again to this new revelation? Tell me about that, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think you said a lot of that really well. But one of the things that I saw in my recovery is that my life was very outwardly unmanageable whenever I got into recovery. And I was dealing with an active pornography addiction. Like, I was so incredibly insecure. I was dealing with all of these different lies that were going on in my head. I was shame-driven and performance-driven. And like, as I got into the process, it was such a freeing thing to go, oh, man, one of the reasons why there's so much chaos going on is because there's a God and I'm not it. Man, like, I can't do this on my own. And there's so much healing that happened for me as I embraced that truth, that as we moved into principle 2, that, there is a God, I'm not it. I actually matter to him. It's kind of confronting some of those core things that drove a lot of things for me. And then, consciously choosing to learn how to turn my will over to God each day. Like, I'm not going to turn to this behavior. I'm going to turn to you, and then starting to understand the good reasons why as I work through the inventory process. And there's a part of me where I'm like, okay, Lord, thank you. I got it.
Yeah.
I can stand on my own now.
Yeah. Don't need you for this part.
I don't need you for this part. And almost the harder part of recovery is where God goes, yeah, hey, we've stopped the bleeding now.
Yeah.
Let's understand why you bled in the first place, brother.
Right.
And
Let's
it's like,
get to the root.
I don't want to do that.
Well, I want to pause there. We'll come back and pick up with this because this is good stuff. Just kind of diving into that embracing change versus fighting change, specifically to character defects in Principle 4 that we learn about our part, the effects, the damage, all that stuff. So we're going to take a super quick break right here. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Andy, talking about wrestling versus clinging with God. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, friends. You might be wondering if Celebrate Recovery is for me. One of the things that is pretty common to think is that Celebrate Recovery must only be for people who struggle with drugs or alcohol. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, out of all the people who attend Celebrate Recovery around the world, over 2/3 of them come in for an issue other than drugs or alcohol. Some of the reasons someone might attend Celebrate Recovery are for codependency, anger issues, sexual addiction, being an adult child of family dysfunction, eating disorders, struggling with effects of abuse, or maybe mental health issues. And that's just to name a few. We truly believe that everyone can benefit from Celebrate Recovery. If there's an issue in your life that's holding you back or causing you pain, Celebrate Recovery is for you. Every Friday night, we have Celebrate Recovery meetings at Fellowship Fayetteville and Fellowship Rogers. 6 o'clock, we have a great meal and a time of connection with other brothers and sisters in recovery. And then we have our large group meeting at 7, followed by our open chair groups at 8. It's the same schedule on both campuses, different teachers, different worship teams, but the same great experience. And we would love for you to join us this Friday night. It is never too late to start or start over again. For more information, check us out at fellowshipcr.org.
Welcome back, talking with Andy here. Great conversation, Andy. Appreciate your wisdom and insight. Wrestling with God versus clinging to God, and we're just talking about that position of we've gotten to this point, we've trusted God, and now He's revealing new things, and it's like, I've got it, God. And what hit me when you were talking is sometimes early, and this I believe this can be one of the reasons why people might bail on step 4.
Yeah,
is we do start to feel better, right?
Yeah,
we go through those first 3 principles like, man, this feels good. I got some things off my chest. I'm talking. I'm confessing some things. I'm coming in agreement with God. Whew, things feel better in my heart. I think I'm good. I think I'm going to go ahead and check out. And I think that's the temptation is Celebrate Recovery is not just about giving relief, but it's helping to restore, redeem, renew, right?
Yeah.
And we're not just about trying to give someone relief. So the thought of going into an inventory where it might bring up more pain, when I'm feeling a little bit better than I was, not where I want to be, but feel a little bit better than I did day 1, why the heck would I go into acknowledging these things,
Yeah.
these roots, right? Just mow the weeds over, and we can't see them anymore. It'll get me to the next phase of life. Thanks so much, CR. The first 3 principles have been life-changing, and I'm good.
Yeah.
And give God all the glory and appreciate the ministry. See you later.
Yeah. Well, I think that same thing is, it's amazing. One, it's amazing how much better I feel when I start trying to live by God's design for my life rather than my design for my life.
Yeah.
And so it's natural by the time I get to principle 4 or principle 5 that it's like, oh, I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And in fact, I feel better than I've felt in years.
Right.
I feel more functional than I've felt in years.
Yeah.
And great, this is what healing looks like.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what I realized is that God's view for healing is so much bigger than my view for healing.
Yeah.
And as I leaned into my recovery, I realized that I was thinking way too small.
Yeah.
Like dealing with the behaviors and some of those shallower underlying things, dealing with the behaviors and the triggers, and that is a part of healing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the surface of it.
Right.
There's such deeper things that I realized were going on inside of my heart and my life that God was so faithful that he wanted to touch those too.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually so gracious of God that he shows us these roots a little bit later in the process.
Right.
Because they would have overwhelmed me when
Protect
I first came
us.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's well said. I mean, I think he's you're talking about soften the beachhead as Jacob is sending his family over.
Yeah.
There's this process in recovery that's softening the beachhead before we get into the deeper battle of understanding the good reasons, not right reasons, but good reasons why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And what does that connect to, and what parts of my story? I mean, Celebrate Recovery is big on story.
Yeah.
We're trying to embrace the scary parts of our story, the happy parts of our story, but understanding our story so that we can understand why our strategies have become to get short with people and let anger be a tool to accomplish righteousness, right? Or codependency, or whatever those things are that are underlying that we need to address. Why am I so concerned with what other people think of me?
Yeah.
Why do I look through the lens of everything always has to be perfect, and if they're not, then I'm a failure? Mm-hmm. All those things we're trying to understand. While he stopped the bleeding, now let's go to work and understand and repair the roots, address the roots, so that we can create new healthy practices. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That part of the process is so important to seek to understand the good reasons why that are underneath it. And I think through, like, one of the things that I've seen in my life recently is when things feel like when I feel helpless,
Mm-hmm.
it feels unbearable. And why is that?
Yeah.
What's going on? What's happening in my heart in that? And I think that's such a different thing that I'm wrestling with than stepping into recovery with an active pornography addiction. Okay, how do I stop the bleeding on this?
Right.
Versus realizing, like, that was just a symptom of, that was a way for me to control my pain.
Yeah.
And now that I don't have that anymore, I didn't realize I was trying to control my pain. But if I don't deal with this thing that's underneath in there, I'm going to find other ways
Right.
to try and control it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was talking recently about this, but just what are some of those unmet emotional needs that need to be addressed that I need to invite God into to address for me? And we were talking about, as we address some of the symptoms early on, we're getting into the roots with principle 4 and the my part that's identifying the character defects. And even the very heart of that is to voluntarily submit.
Yeah.
So there's a day one submitting to a higher power. I'm not it. And then now we're in the middle of it to submit, to address God, I'm submitting to every change you want to do in my life. Thank you for the change. But Lord, if you got more that you want to do, I'm submitting to that. And then ultimately in principle 8, we're submitting to be used to carry that forward based on what he's done. So there's kind of these markers, start, mid, end, that's taken us to this place of submitting to our higher power to do what he needs to do in and through us. But I was thinking about just that submitting, it can be scary to do that.
Yeah.
As he's revealing things to me. But I always love the analogy of if a surgeon's determined, hey, Andy, you've got a tumor inside of you. Yeah. We're going to operate on you. We're going to cut you open. And then the surgeon cuts you open and finds 10 tumors. Do you want him just to remove the one he thought was there, or do you want him to take all 10?
Yeah.
And that's scary because that means it's going to be a longer surgery, probably a longer recovery. But in the end, I want those out of me.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we approach it as, no, this was the problem. It's just this one tumor. Forget about that. Let's address this, and that will fix my life. And then we sew ourselves back up, and we've still got these other tumors stuck inside of us. And it's like, why am I not feeling better? Why am I not getting better? Why is this not sustainable? Well, because you still have these unaddressed things living in your body. And God, the great physician, is cutting you open and saying, hey, you don't know about this, Andy, but there's a couple more things here.
Yeah.
And because I love you, I'm going to point it out to you. The wrestling versus clinging is, wrestling would say, no. Sew me up. I don't want to address that. Clinging is saying, God, you've got me this far.
Yeah.
You're faithful to carry me through it. And it's scary, Lord. I know it's going to be a longer surgery, but do your thing, Father. I submit. I voluntarily submit to every change you want to do in my life.
Yeah, and there's a reality that, God's past faithfulness is cause for our present trust.
Yeah.
And I think through those times where God's going, hey, by the way, there's more in here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that can fuel my wrestling is this sense of like, I'm not supposed to be that messed up anymore.
Yeah.
You kidding me? Like, no, this has been a long journey. There's been a lot of healing that's happened. I should be better than I think I am.
Yeah.
And it's this pride that comes up that says, hey, I may have been broken at one point, but and the reality, I go back to Philippians 1:6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That reminds me that if I'm not dead, he's not done.
Yeah.
But he loves me so much that the goal is that I look like Jesus the best that I can this side of heaven.
Yeah.
And he loves me so much that he's not going to stop.
Yeah.
And so, the wrestling is this sense that, man, I thought Jesus' work on the cross already did its work in me, versus, oh, Jesus isn't going to stop doing his work in me,
right?
Because he loves me. And the voluntarily submit part is allowing maybe my grief, my pride, my fear, or my own next layer of denial to go, all right, okay, God. Just like you were saying, like, you are a good doctor. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, and God has put a character in us, and he's trying to grow our character, and sometimes he points defects in our character.
Yeah.
And so how do
Such
we
a good way to put it.
address the defects so that we can get back to the character that God wants us to carry and walk through? Doesn't mean we're perfect. We're in progress. We're in process. But he wants to address those defects. So am I willing to cling to the one that got me here. And I love the way you said that trust is based on past experiences. God, you got me here. You're faithful to carry me. I trust you. Hey, there's a couple more things in here, Andy. You want to address it. It's a defect, but the good thing is he has the power to turn our defects into health and growth, right? He wants to make us healthy, and these things are creating some barriers for us in our life. And so last comments here, Andy, what would you say to someone that might be in that wrestling phase? Maybe it's day one. Yeah. Maybe they're in the middle of the fourth step and they're learning some character defects that God is pointing out. Say, hey, what about this? What would you say to encourage them in their wrestling match with God in this space?
Yeah. So there's a verse that came to mind in that. It's Deuteronomy 31:8, that the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you, so do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. And one of the things that's kind of encouraged me in my life is that God goes before me in my journey. And so the things that he's bringing up, they're not surprising him, and he knows the path ahead. And so if I'm in the middle of step 4, somebody listening to this is in the middle of the step 4, and God's bringing some stuff up, could it be the case that he's bringing that up for a reason? That maybe it's not God trying to be like, look how messed up you are, man, or you thought you were fixed, you're not. Like, maybe it's him going, all right, hey, you ready for the next step? By the way, you're ready for it because I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
And I'm going before you in this. Let's take a look at this. I love you.
Yeah.
And I'm not leaving you in it. Let's walk together.
Yeah. And you're not going to do it alone.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Good stuff, Andy. Thanks so much for your heart, man, your wisdom. Great conversation. It's always good to kind of banter with you, and we could go on for hours, but people would probably stop listening.
They probably would.
So, but I appreciate you being here, man. Thanks for your heart, man.
Thanks, brother.
I hope this brings some encouragement for you. I know this can be a scary process, but in the book of Ephesians, it does remind us that we're put off the old self and to put on the new self. And sometimes we walk around with that old wardrobe and those character defects that we've not addressed, or like wearing that old wardrobe. We're not to wear that old uniform anymore. God's given us a new uniform to put on, and through his power, he can change us. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're struggling with some defects, maybe God's revealing some things, don't be scared. He's not going to leave you alone. He's going to be with you every step of the way, just like he was day one. And if you're day one, know that he'll be with you today. All you got to do is surrender. It's much harder to surrender than it is to accomplish, but trust him in the process. Hey, thanks so much for being with us today. I pray that you'll join us next time. Until then, God bless you guys.